Welcome back, Tribe. I have a really interesting one today. The headline is roughly 60% of millennials, Gen Z, say they would rather spend money on life experiences like traveling, concerts now than save for retirement. Are they making a big mistake? And we're going to go through some videos here that support the reason why people would rather live in the moment right now than to save for a future that doesn't exist. They don't have what their parents or grandparents had, and they probably never will.
$2,000 a month, and my rent is $1,660.
Sadly, this is getting to be the story of pretty much everybody out there. I haven't rented since I was in my 20s, so I've been out of the housing market forever on this shit. But I tried to help my niece get a place about 6-8 months ago, something like that. And she was telling me everything she found was $1,900, $2,300, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, sweetheart, you just let me look for you. There's something out there, $500-$600 a month that's decent. I'll find it. There's not. Like, how? I mean, why? Why did we get to this point? Why is just a decent place to sleep and cook and survive exist? Why is it $3,000, $4,000 a fucking month? I mean, it's ridiculous. Something's got to change. Otherwise, we're going to end up with half the country homeless.
See, and she found something for $1,600, and she was cutting a lot of corners just to get to 16. The old man, he wouldn't live in anything less than $3,000 to $4,000 at current market prices. That tells you how insane shit has gotten. And here's going to be a comparison. Remember 1970. This is a very important date in your head.
1970, the average home was $15,000. It is now $436,000. It has gone up 29 times. Rent was $108, is now $2,000. That's gone up 20 times. College was $500. It's now $11,000. That's gone up 20 times. Gas was 36 cents. It's now $3.80. That has gone up 10 to 12 times. But what about the income? In 1970, the average person was making $9,000. Today, they're making $56,000. That has only gone up 6 times compared to everything else. But this is where it gets sad. In 1970, the average household had 3.5 children. Today, it's only 1.9. And the crazy part is that back in 1970, the average household, 47% were dual income. It has now jumped to 65% is dual income. So millennials and Gen Zers under the household are putting in more hours than the boomers did. We're both working 40 hours a week, but you got way more bang for your buck and more children. You got to expand your family, own a house. Things are so drastically different. The birth rate is plummeting because people can't afford it. So we need to make a change so that we can turn this around.
And that'll fall on deaf ears because there is no turning this around. All we see is profit today at the expense of society and long-term thinking. Houses used to be $15,000 with $100 mortgages. That's jumped to rent $2,000. A house was $1970. Burn this date in your head. It is the beginning of the end of America, and you will see why.
The boomer and millennial debate continues, but I gotta tell you, boomers, you got it good. You own 53% of our nation's wealth. We have $147 trillion and you own 53% of it. The silent generation has 17%, which is 24 trillion. You have 53%, which is 77 trillion. Gen X 25%, which is 36 trillion. And then us millennials, we have 5%, which is 7 trillion. But here's where it gets interesting. There are 55 million silent generation, 69 million boomers, 65 million Gen Xers, and 72 million millennials. So if we played a fun little game where we redistributed the wealth equally amongst each person's generation, the silent generation, every person would get $436,000. The boomers would have $1.1 million apiece. Gen X would have $553,000 apiece. And us little whiny millennials that you like to say we're always crying, we would have $97,000 apiece. So every generation could buy the average home in America in cash and still live a great life if we were redistributed it equally. The millennials, however, wouldn't even have enough for a 20% down payment with closing costs for the average home in America. So things like this is why we complain and we talk about our struggles, because it's clearly not going in the right direction. And we just want people to be aware of that.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, they tell us. You don't work hard enough. You're not putting up enough hours. Back in my day, I used to travel 50 miles by my feet, worked myself to the bone, still went to college, had 30 kids, worked 48 hours a day. And I didn't complain a goddamn second. Now you come in here with your avocado toast talking about remote work too expensive to drive. What kind of shit is that? It's like, how much more fucking stupid can the boomers be when they tell us that we don't put in as much work as they do? We don't have the work ethic when we're working double, triple jobs with fucking side gigs and trying to hustle on the internet just to make the 2K month rent because jobs disappeared because you shipped over manufacturing to China and all our industries are now overseas. And we can't afford college. Now here's the infamous date that you need to keep in your head and what happened.
At some point, we need to have a discussion to find out what happened in 1970. I'm about to show you a lot of graphs, so bear with me. We'll start with the mass incarceration era and historical context. Everything's going well. 1970, boom. Here we are looking at U.S. national debt. Everything's going, decent. 1970, boom. Here we are looking at the Consumer Price Index, or as I like to call it, the CPI. This graph starts in 1775, Revolutionary War, pre-Revolutionary War. All right. Then we get to 1970, whoop, all the way up and to the right, unlike my stocks. Here we are looking at growth in productivity and hourly compensation since 1948. All right. Source, Economic Policy Institute. That's ran by a bunch of people smarter than you and I. 1970, going this way to the right, and productivity still going up. Where's my wages? Number of lawyers in population per lawyer. In 1970, up and to the right. What's going on? Why do we need so many lawyers? Meat consumption. We were having all of the types of meat. Beef, all leading meat, pork. And then we just started to eat chicken all the time in 1970. Children per woman. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I could get myself in some trouble. But 1970. It goes down. Median house costs and household income over time. Look where it splits. What happened?
Here's what happened. Anti-union laws and union busting was one of the main reasons. Nixon took us off the gold standard and helped create the petrodollar. The growth of private prison system, outsourcing jobs. So once we went off the gold standard in 71, this caused our currency to not be backed by anything, allowing for inflation. People don't understand that when you have a currency, this is not sound money. Then it negatively affects everything from CPI to production to overall standard of living. They killed Kennedy and made America a corporation. War on drugs, gold standard, trickle-down economics, you name it. Coupled with birth control, sexual revolution, and feminism being pushed onto women in the workplace. So now we have access to double the workforce and pay doesn't need to be increased to compensate. If anything, it could be decreased from the competition. And then just to see the affordability of things today, he's going to do a quick calculation of income needed to buy a 500K home, which is already out of the price range of the average person. 500K is insane. That's you doing well in life.
How much money do you have to make to buy a $500,000 house? Well, let's break it down real quick. Let's say you put down 5%, $25,000 for the down payment. You got another 3 to 4% for closing costs. So let's say $15,000. That's $40,000 upfront cash to get your foot in the door. Now let's break down the monthly. Let's say you get a loan out on the rest of the money at a 7.5% interest rate. It's going to put your principal and interest payment about $3,200, but you also have to have your taxes and insurances included. So let's say that's another $800 for a grand total of $4,000 a month. So how
$4,000 a month for a house. Remember, in the prior video, they were paying $108 with comparable wages that made that affordable.
do you need to earn to be able to get a loan that's $4,000 a month? $130,000. So let's break this down real quick. You take your $130,000, you multiply that by 40%. That's the typical debt to income ratio a lender's going to use when qualifying you. That's 52 grand divided by 12 months gives you $4,333 for the allowance. And you even got that extra $333 left over in case you have a credit card or a car payment. But as always, talk to a professional lender. They can look under your financial hood and you can do what's best for you and your family.
And there's always going to be some moron in the comments saying, the area I live in, you could get a house for $150,000, bro, and then you could just live cheaply. You live in the middle of fucking nowhere with no jobs. People are tied to their work. They can't just leave. Not everybody has remote options. If you work in a big city and make good amounts of money, you can't transfer that skill to the fucking boonies that you live in where houses are $100,000 in the middle of fuck all nowhere. The argument of just move somewhere cheaper, just stop buying lattes, save your money, bro. is not going to help anybody that's tied to a city, a company, a location where they have to clock in and work every single day, and housing all around them has exploded in price and inflation destroyed their purchasing power. How are you going to tell this person now to have kids, take care of a woman, have a traditional family? You can't. You're barely paying for yourself. This whole conversation of what's happening in dating today, what's going on in society, why is nobody having children, why are nobody getting married? We can't afford to feed ourselves. At best, we can get a pet because they're cheap, but a full-blown child, impossible. The proliferation of dog moms and cat moms is a perfect example of a woman soothing her need for children but can't afford one. And then where's the men that could, quote, take care of a family? They're fucking working all day to barely take care of themselves because the economy's in the shitter and it's only getting worse. And then we're going to go into election season and they're going to give us a bunch of empty promises, both Team Red and Team Blue, and you're going to eat that shit up and smile with your shit-eating grin. And by the time they're in office, none of the campaign promises happen. This is the system. They're clinking glasses together at private events, taking in donor money, taking in corporate money, while you, the average man and the average woman, is struggling. You can't fucking meet anybody. You're too goddamn broke to go out on dates. It's costing you too much money to feed yourself, to house yourself, and now you want to add another person on, a baby, for a job that doesn't let you even get 1 week vacation, expects you to be there all the time, 3 strikes you're out rule. And God forbid you live in an at-will state where they can just fire you at will for whatever reason. Oh, my baby got sick. Have to clock out right away. Sorry, Sarah, we don't have somebody to take over your shift. Fucking stay here, get fired. All of this comes on the heels of 1971 and coming off the gold standard. The rise of the petrodollar, the corporatization of America. We sold out the country to corporations and special interests. That is why lobby money is so powerful. That's why if you're a corporation today, you're even considered a person you could infinitely donate with super PACs and dark money and all this shit. Citizens United was basically the coup de grace to what America was. It's a corporatocracy now. It's fascism. It's the old school real definition of fascism, the merging of state and corporation. Speaking as a man for men, because it's a little different for women. If you want any semblance of a traditional lifestyle, if you want to be able to afford a home, if you want to be able to pay and keep your woman at home and have a stay-at-home mother to look after your kids while you go out and earn money, you have to go overseas or learn a skill so specialized that the pay is exorbitant in comparison to the area you live in the United States. Even then, we're going to have to talk about the marriage laws and how they're not in your favor. And you have to pick, needle of a haystack situation for a quality woman. You go overseas, you can get yourself a traditional woman with traditional standards, and the cost of living is like 3x, 4x cheaper than the United States. And your dollar for what you're earning now is probably 4, 5, 6x in value. That's your only hope. I can tell you right now, living in Eastern Europe myself, it'd be very easy to buy a house. I could do it for $80,000. Close by to the capital city, large enough to have a family in, support everybody. I wouldn't even be spending more than $2,000 a month. In the United States, my rent is $2,000 a month. More than that, I was paying $2,600 for the house I was renting in Phoenix. Just the house. Phoenix, Arizona, when the summers are fucking full blast 120 degrees, you're spending $500-$600 on electric. So now we're up to $3,200. That's just the house, electricity. We're not gonna add in the car, the groceries, and whatever else you need day to day. We haven't even talked about going out and enjoying a nice dinner with your woman. We haven't even talked about adding kids to the equation. Where do people get the money today to live the lifestyle their parents lived? The answer is fucking nowhere. We see the dream life on Instagram and all over social media because that's what it is. It's an illusion and it keeps you sedated to your own reality. Maybe one day I'll get there. God, it would be nice to have that. If I just put in more hours to my dead-end job that's going to fire me because I'm a seasonal worker most likely, or they only brought me in part-time because they don't want to pay benefits, maybe I'll get there too. No, you're working at most jobs today, most careers are dead end. You will work till you die. Retirement ages just got bumped up to 67 and will again probably be bumped up to like 70. And again, nobody will live long enough to retire. You're going to be the 70-something-year-old dude waving people in at Costco or Walmart. Welcome to Walmart. Working because you can't afford to live off the pension you have because it's garbage. If I could give everybody advice, it's this simple, man. While you're at your dead-end job, you're just working to pay bills, paycheck to paycheck. Start investing in yourself. Start buying books. learning things. Figure out what you want to do in life, what natural talents you have, and start augmenting that ability. You have to find a way out of the rat race, or you're going to live a mediocre, soul-crushing life with nothing to show for it. And they wonder why people's will to live, especially men in the West, are so bad that they're choosing to hit the game over button on their lives in spectacularly increasing rates. Mainstream doesn't want to talk about. And how bad is the self-deletion? Statistics say the biggest killer of men under 45 is death by hitting the game over button, self-delete. It's an epidemic that we are ignoring. I'll repeat, when you take all this into account and you wonder why people aren't having families and you want to know what the outcome of society is and its impacts on the individual, when you isolate them and don't even give them families or a place to live, the number one killer of men under 45 is self-deletion. If that isn't a sign of a sick society, I don't know what is. We'll see you guys on the next one.